This video is a walkthrough of the new product from Required Systems called RSL Manager Cloud. This is a cloud-based system where all the information and data is stored on a server in the cloud, and you can access it from any PC running the software with an internet connection. RSL Manager Cloud allows you to manage both care homes and domiciliary care services. All the procedures, forms and other documentation required to exhibit CQC compliance are contained within the system. Let's just launch the system and I'll take you a quick walkthrough of the main features of the package. The first thing you're asked when you launch the software is for the PIN. The PIN is an important security measure, and it makes sure that none of the data stored using that PIN is available to any other person in the system. There are two ways of operating with the RSL Manager Cloud. You can have a PIN allocated to each home that you manage, so that the data from one home cannot be viewed by people in another home apart from the manager who has overall view of the homes. The other way is within the PIN to have multiple homes. The data for the homes can be shared between the people who have access to that PIN. The example I'm going to show here then is that second example. This PIN gains me access to a number of homes, all of which can share data. Once you've put the PIN in for the home, you then are asked for a username. Now the username will determine what access people have to the various parts of the system. Under this PIN, I have a number of homes to manage. I have 5 homes, and I can select which home I wish to look at by clicking from the list here. I'll just select the first one on the list and click on this large button to enter that home. Now, it would be exactly the same thing for a domiciliary care service. We now have an icon bar up here which gives you access to all the tasks you want to perform using the system. Let's go through each one in turn. This is the master document. If we select that, we then get a menu of all of the procedures which are available for RSL Manager Cloud. Clicking on any of these links brings up the appropriate document, and if we click on that, the procedure is loaded into a window and displayed as a PDF file. Now this looks a bit large in this window, but if we move down here to where the PDF menu pops up, we can make it a bit smaller and we can zoom it down so we can see it. We can scroll through this document and we can print the document out. Again, moving down to the bottom gives us the PDF menu appearing, and there's the print icon. We can also save it from here, or we can save it from the download button up here. You'll notice that the procedure document is automatically populated with the name of the home at the top of each page. Clicking on download will download it as a Word document. Word documents are then editable, and then you can edit this procedure and save it locally on your computer in your My Documents. You cannot change the master documents on the system. By definition, these are the master documents. But if you wish to edit a procedure and save it locally on your system, then you can do that by saving it as a Word document. When you go to save it, click on File, click on Save As, and browse to your documents or where you want to save it on your system. Don't just click on the Save button, because that will save it into a temporary folder. To use Word in this system, you have to have Word 2007 or above. In other words, versions of Word which are compatible with the DocX format of documents. The way that we close down the tabs, you can see here, we just click on that and it closes the tab. So I can go through and I can select any one of the procedures, and I see it over here, and I can load that procedure. Let's close down the master documents now, and let's look at the forms. Again, we've got a list here of the forms, so let's go and find form 45. I go in here. If I click on form 45, again it launches that as a PDF, and again here's the PDF menu down the bottom. We can zoom out and see it. If we want to save it as a PDF, we can click on here. We can print this out by clicking on the print button, or again we can download it as a Word document and here it is. Again, it's populated with the name of the home. We would save this as a local document on our computer, and we can do what we want with that document once it's in that Word format. Okay, so let's just close down that form and close down the master forms. So that's how you can print out and save any document, procedure or any form from RSL Manager Cloud. However, the real power of this system is the ability to fill in these forms online and store them online. So let's now have a look at how that can be done. There'll be several more detailed tutorials and walkthroughs, but I'm just doing an overview of it just now. So don't worry if you haven't picked up all the things I'm doing. There will be more detailed tutorials available. In the Manage Home, this is where you can add additional homes. Remember that all of the data in these homes will be visible by the people in these homes. You can add a new home by clicking on here, and you can edit the home details by clicking on here. Just edit this, and we haven't filled in much information. This can all be filled in here, and this is where you can allocate staff members to the home, and it's very easy. You simply select a person from here and move them across, and that's them now a staff member in that home. Save that information. Again, if we go back here, we can just simply double click on this line to get up the same thing. We don't need to click on the edit home button here. For service users, again, we can just select a number of service users. So if I hold down the control key, I can select the service users I want to put into this home or into this care service. Just click add, that's them in, and save it. So we now have in Nathanville home a number of service users and a number of staff members. Let's see how we actually add a staff member to begin with. So if we go to staff member here, you'll see here are the staff members that I put in. I can add a new staff member by clicking on here, and I can give in all this information about the staff member here, the personal details, bank details if you wish. There's a memo field, which is just a free text area where you can put in comments and keep a record of other information. And there's also a history tab here, which will give you information about the forms and documents that person has worked with. I'll not bother adding that just now. Likewise, you can add a new service user in the same way. So we click on here and we go new service user. You'll notice that you can add a picture. You can either do that if you've got a webcam attached to your laptop or computer and click on there, it will detect it. Otherwise, you can just load the picture of the person. So if I click load the picture, I find the service user I'm looking for. There she's there. I just add the picture, and I can then add in all the information, name, surname, known as, address, all of that information in there. Personal details, again a memo field which is useful for just taking notes, and a history of any forms associated with that person. You'll notice the final column of this here is the active column, and the active column is very important because that says whether that person is active or not as a member of staff or as a service user in the home. Now you can't actually delete staff members and service users because obviously you need to keep records for legal purposes, but you can make a member of staff or a service user inactive if they're no longer part of the organisation or living in the home. Form history. This is where you see a list of all of the forms that I've filled in online. Again, for these you see who updated it, the home that it's relevant to, the date it was posted, the type of form. There are three types of forms. There are forms that are relevant to a service user, forms that are relevant to a member of staff, and forms which are relevant to the home itself, and that shows you the type. The details of what the form's about, the form number, and the title of the form. So if I click on one of these forms, let's say I went to an accident report form, double click on that, that will load up that form that's been filled in online, and all the information will be filled in there. That can then be downloaded as a Word document, or again as a PDF. You can either save it as a PDF or print it as a PDF from here. Let me just close that down. One of the really powerful parts of this grid is that you can filter to find information. Now you can imagine that over the years the number of forms will grow to a very large number, so you don't want to have to go scrolling up and down the list all the time trying to find them. They are displayed in the order of the latest accessed forms at the top, but you still want to be able to find things quickly. If I wanted to find all of the forms that were relating to, let's say, the test home, all I do is click in here and type in test, and as soon as I do that, it filters all of the records containing test. Notice we can just select it from the drop down list here, and that shows it. Also, in the date field, you can put in a date, and you can find the forms that were put in a particular date. In a text field, you can just type in a word or part of the word, and it will filter on that. So filtering is a very important feature of these grids. Some of these forms are multiple entry forms. In other words, it's not a single form per event. You have a list or a log of information. So for instance, if we look at the accident log here and double click on that, what comes up here are the list of all the entries that have been put in on the accident log. And the way you can work with them is you can export this data, and rather than taking it to a Word document because it's actually a grid, you can export it out to Excel. And once it's in Excel, you can print it and you can do other things using the Excel package. Again, it requires Excel with the versions 2007 upwards. Okay, so let's now do what I was setting out to do at the start, and that's to show you how you can fill in a form online. Let's go to a service user. And let's say the service user we want to fill in a form about is Mrs. Jean Smith, who's highlighted here. We go down to the corner and click on Forms, and the form we want to fill in about this particular service user is the initial needs assessment. So I select that and double click on it. This is just confirming that we are in the Nathanville home and the service user is Mrs. Jean Smith, and this is the form we want to work on. So we'll just click Edit Form. What you'll see now then is a page where you can fill in electronically the data on this person. So here we have pre-populated with the person's name, and when she was working she was a salesperson. That's just some information about her. We can click in here and we can put the date in which this assessment was done. So let's say it was today, so we'll just click on that. We type in the name of the assessor and so on, and then we can go through the personal care, the mobility, the communication, medical assessment simply by clicking from these drop down lists and filling in whether it's a yes or a no for these things here. And so we can go through the form, filling in text fields, filling in drop down lists. When everything's in, simply click on Save Form. Get a confirmation it has been posted up to the cloud server, and that form is now stored electronically in the form history. So if we go back to the service users here, have a look at our form history, there we have at the top the latest form is the initial needs assessment. Double click on that and there we have it. The form's been filled in, the data I put in is there, and there we see the yeses and nos that I selected from that form. That form is now stored electronically. We can download it and we can print it to keep a paper copy if we want, but it will stay on the system as long as we want. Going back to the form history, remember we can filter. So again, we would use the filtering system to find the forms for a particular person. So I'm going up here, I'm going to click on this and I'll say it contains, and it contains Smith. And as soon as I do that, it filters down to only the forms for Mrs. Jean Smith, and I can print them out and view them or do what I want. So that's the power of this system, the ability to fill in online these forms and then pull them up from the form history. I said at the start that the login the person has to this system determines the access they get to various parts of the system. And very briefly I'll show you the way that permissions are set up. If we go up to this little tab here and click on Maintenance, this is where we set up the users and put in the password for the user. And if I click on any of the users, let's say myself, and double click on that, what I get here then is quite a sophisticated grid of permissions where I can tick boxes to give certain people access to view or edit or no access at all to certain parts of the system. So for instance, if I didn't want a member of staff to be able to view and edit the staff records, I simply click on there to say no access and no access. And if all I wanted was for them to have read-only access of the service user's information, again I click on there and say read-only for service user. So you can customize the permissions of the logins of the people who are using this system. Obviously, as manager or administrator, you can see all the data and all the information on all of the homes with that PIN. The remaining icons on here are access to various reference sites. So if we click on here, you get access to a whole lot of web links to various pieces of information that might be relevant to you running your home or your domiciliary care service. In the tutorial link, you'll find this video and some other videos going into more detail on how RSL Manager Cloud operates. Again, a set of links here that take you straight to certain websites, Care Home UK for instance, Food Standard Agency, and so on. The final thing which I want to show you is an optional part of this package. If you decide to take this option, then you have a task manager as well. Now in the task manager, it shows you a list of tasks. It shows you whether they're out of date or whether they haven't been completed, and this is a separate section of the whole package, and I'll do a walkthrough of the task manager and show you how that operates. But what you can do is you can put tasks beside certain members of staff, and then they can go in and see whether the task has been completed or not at what time. Okay, so that was a quick walkthrough, well, that was a fairly quick walkthrough of RSL Manager Cloud. It's a very, very powerful system. It allows you access to your master documents and forms if you simply want to print them out, fill them in manually, or download them as Word documents and work on them as Word documents. What you can also do though is you can fill in the forms online, and the data from these is then stored in the form history, which you can then call up. You can create staff members, you can create service users, and you can manage your homes. If you want to look at more detail on how this operates, then have a look at some of the walkthrough videos I'll be doing later on. Thanks for watching.